Hi, welcome to Deelish and Dare. Glad to see everybody again. Today we're going to be making a peach chili salsa using the hot water bath method. This particular method for making preserved foods is only for high acid foods. We want to make sure that everything is done properly, and this is the proper way to make the salsa today. So let's go ahead and get started. I've already pre-washed the fruits and vegetables that needed to be pre-washed in advance. So the first thing we're going to do is peel our peaches. Now this peach seems like it's pretty soft. However, if you get a peach that's a little bit on the hard side, you can always blanch it in boiling water for about 30 to 60 seconds. Then immediately take it out and put it in some cold water, perhaps with ice in it. This is going to help loosen the skins, and it's going to make cutting the peach and peeling the peach a little bit easier. So what we're going to have to do in just a minute is to treat our peaches, because light colored fruits such as peaches, apples, pears, and what have you, they will discolor very quickly when they're oxidized, which means when they have been exposed to the air. So we're just going to chop these up quickly. I've already chopped up a few in advance. And when you make these, you just cut them, chop them the size that you're interested in eating your salsa. So if you like big chunky pieces, that's absolutely fine. I would much rather get a great big piece of peach than maybe some of the other ingredients that we're putting in here. But you just chop them up to the size that you're interested in. Now we're going to add this to our other peaches. And we're going to put some fruit fresh in a bowl of water. This is about 2 quarts of water, and we have about 3 rounded teaspoons of fruit fresh. Fruit fresh serves as an antioxidant, and it's going to help your peaches not to turn brown. The brown part is not going to hurt you. It's just not very pretty. So we're going to mix this up and put our peaches in here and let them soak for just a moment. Let's sort of wish them around in there a little bit to make sure that they all get some of that fruit fresh on it to keep them from turning brown, because we want to make sure that we have a pretty product when we get through. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. So let's drain it well. And we're going to add it to our bowl. Okay, the next thing we're going to add is diced red onion. And we're also going to add some jalapeno peppers. The recipe calls for 4 peppers, but you need to decide how spicy you want it. If you like something that's very spicy, you might want to add all 4 peppers, and you definitely want to leave some of the seeds and the membranes in. The seeds and the membranes inside of the jalapeno peppers are what makes it extra spicy. So let's cut up one now. And you see I'm using gloves. Not only are the peppers spicy, but as you cut them, they release oils. And these can get on your fingers, and when they do, they can cause you to burn your fingers. And if you rub any sensitive area such as your eyes, it's really, really going to hurt. So be sure to use gloves when you're cutting up any kind of hot peppers. Now I'm taking out pretty much all of the seeds and all of the membranes on the inside. I've already cut up some in advance, and I left a few of the seeds in there just for the spicy factor. So we're going to cut these up, and we're going to cut these up just a little bit smaller than we did the peaches a few minutes ago, because we don't want to get a great big bite of jalapeno. A great big bite of peach would taste a little better than a great big bite of jalapeno. So let's chop that up. And we'll hit it just a couple of more times. Alrighty, let's add that to our bowl. It's really starting to look very colorful. All right, and now we have some red bell pepper to continue with the pretty colors that we have here. And we have some cilantro. All right, these are all the fruits and vegetables that we're going to add to this. But now let's add a few other ingredients. Okay, we have some garlic. This is 1 clove of garlic. I kind of cheated today and used some that came in a jar, but you could most definitely use the garlic cloves. Alrighty, and next we're going to add ground cumin. A little bit of red pepper. This is going to give it a little bit more kick, just like the jalapenos. We're going to add honey. That's going to add and enhance the sweetness from the peaches. And finally, we're going to add some vinegar. Now, be sure when you're getting your vinegar that you buy the kind that says 5% acidity, because you're going to need the 5% in order to properly can your whatever it is that you're canning, because it needs that acidity in order to be able to be processed and to be able to sit out on the shelf for an extended period of time. So make sure that you do check for the 5% acidity. All right, now we're going to stir this up just a tiny bit, and then we're going to put it in our pot, and we're going to head to the stove to begin cooking this. So let's head on over to the stove. We have everything on the stove right now, and if you remember the ingredients, we don't have a whole lot of liquid in here at this particular time. We just added a little bit of vinegar and a little bit of honey. But what we want is for this pot to boil. So we're going to give it just a few minutes. We have it like on a medium high, and we're going to keep stirring and stirring. We don't want anything to stick. And the heat is going to draw out the moisture from the fruits and the vegetables that we have in here. And then that's going to go along with the vinegar and the honey until we have enough liquid in here to bring it to a boil. At that point, we're going to lower the heat just a little bit, and we're going to cook it for about 5 minutes until it gets just a little bit thick and ready to be canned. Our product has been cooking for about 5 minutes, and it's looking really, really good. So it's about time for us to do the actual processing of it. So let's look at the tools and the processes that we need in order to safely can something. Okay, the first thing I want to show you is the hot water bath canner. This is it right here. Basically, it's a great big pot with a lid. All right, we got to be careful for the steam. And inside of it, we have a rack. The rack is going to be to hold the jars so that we can safely lower them and raise them back up. And it also gives a little barrier between the jars and the actual bottom of the pot, because we don't want the jars sitting directly on the bottom of the pot. Now, I got this water boiling a good while before we got started, because to get a pot of water this size boiling, it takes a little while to do. Inside, you'll see that I've got a jar in here. The next thing that we're going to look at are the actual canning jars that we're going to use. When we're canning, and these are hot because I just took them out, we're going to use canning jars. You'll find them in grocery stores, Walmarts, you can find them online and so forth. You don't want to use something like an old spaghetti jar, something that had mayonnaise in it or what have you, because they're not made for canning. So we want to use the jar that we need to use. We can reuse these jars over and over and over again as long as they don't have any cracks or chips in them. Now, when we're getting ready to can, we want to make sure that our jars are hot, because if we begin to put in a product that's hot and our jars are cold, it's going to bust the jars. So in advance of this, I have washed the jars and I put them in the canner to keep them hot until we're getting ready to use them. Now, another option would be you could put them in your dishwasher and wash them that way and just leave them in the dishwasher where they'll stay hot until you're getting ready to use them. So next we're going to fill up our jars. So we can use a big spoon, or we can use a ladle and ladle in the hot salsa into our hot jars. Now this recipe calls for a 1/2 inch head space. So what we're going to do, and this is a neat little tool right here, we're going to use this end of the tool to get the bubbles out of the jar, because we want to make sure that our jar is full like it needs to be, but it doesn't have air bubbles in it. So all you need to do is run it around the jar a little bit, just to make sure that if there's any air pockets, we've taken care of them. Then we're going to turn it around and use the other end. Here you'll see little indentations on the end, and these are increments that we will need to know about how deep we need to leave our headspace. So if we turn it up this way, right here in the middle, it says 1/2 inch. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this around the rim of the jar and sort of go around it and make sure that we're leaving that 1/2 inch of headspace. Okay, so it looks like we've done pretty good. Once we have that headspace measured off, we're going to make sure that we clean the jar really well. We're just going to wipe around the top of it, and we're going to wipe around where the band is going to go. The reason for that is we want to make sure that everything is clean so that we get a good seal on it. Next thing we're going to do is get our lids. All right, I have these lids over here in a nice little pot with some warm water on it. If you look at this, you'll see that it has like a little rubberish looking band around it. And we keep it in the warm water in order to soften this and help it to seal much better. And this is a neat little trick. I don't know who invented this. It's basically a stick with a magnet on the end of it, but it sure makes life a whole lot easier than trying to stick a fork or something like that down in there to get the lid. So let's put the lid on. We're just going to center it right on top, and then we're going to get the screw band. These are the screw bands, and like the jars, you can reuse the screw bands over and over again, until they begin to get rusty or they get bent. You can keep using them. We're going to put this on, and be careful because your product is hot, and just put it on fingertip tight. Now, we talked about the lids just now. The lids are the one thing that you can't reuse again for canning. So you can certainly keep the lids if you have something, you have leftover gravy or something, you just want to put it in the refrigerator. But don't reuse these lids again for canning, because once they've been used once, they're not going to seal again. So what we're going to do is we're going to finish filling the rest of these jars, and we're going to place them right in here in our canner. Okay, I'll take this last one out that's been in here getting warm. And then we're going to lower the basket inside. We're going to put the lid back on it. Let's give this about 15 minutes to process, and we'll come right back and we'll show you what it looks like. Okay, our 15 minutes of processing time is over, so we're going to get ready and take these out. Be real careful with the steam. To make life a little bit easier, we're going to pull up the basket that we have in here. And so I'm just using a couple of forks just to kind of lift it up for me a little bit until I can get a hold of it. And we're just going to prop it up right on the edge here. All right, we're going to use the jar lifter now that you've seen me use a little while ago, but let me show it to you just a little bit. This is kind of a funny little creature here. This is actually the top where you're going to put your hands. Down here, you'll see that it's plastic covered. It's coated so that you don't have metal just tinging onto your glass, and it's sort of rounded. It's shaped just right for picking up the jars. So we're going to put this in our hands, and we're going to pick up our jars, get just a little bit of the water off, and set it over here. Once we get these out of the water, we don't want to do a whole lot with them for about 12 hours. We want to let them sit, we want to let them cool, and we want to make sure in about 12 hours that they've processed properly. Now here in a minute you might hear a little ting. If you hear that ting, oh, I just heard one. That means that one of the jars is sealing already. It's hard to look at them and tell that they're sealing, but tomorrow, about 12 hours from now, we're going to be able to come back in here and press the lids down. I'm not going to do that now because I don't want to mess this up. But if you press the lid down and it kind of gives way with you, that means that it hasn't sealed properly. It's still going to be a safe food to eat, but go ahead and put it in the refrigerator and eat it right away. Don't put it up on your shelf. Now, if you press this down and it feels firm, it's hard, it doesn't go anywhere, that means that it's sealed properly. Now, also, we put these screw bands on, and we said we just did that finger tight. So tomorrow, in about 12 hours, you can go back, and if the jar lids are loose, you can tighten them up a little bit then. Until then, we're just going to sort of leave this alone. But let me bring it over here where I have some salsa that I already made. Okay, here's some salsa that I made yesterday. It's the same thing we just made a while ago. Doesn't it look pretty? It's got all kinds of pretty colors in it. The oranges, the reds, the pinks in there, and it just looks delicious. So let's give a piece of it a try here. Look at that. How would you like that on a chip? Or you could even use this on chicken or pork. It would be a really good addition to that. That's good, y'all. It's a little bit sweet from the peaches and the honey, but it's also got a little kick from the jalapenos. So give this a try. Try it on the side like with salsa. Try it along with some other meat products that you might have, some protein products. And if you have any questions about food preservation, food safety, give us a call here at the Dare County Cooperative Extension Service. It's 252-473-4290. See you guys later.